This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
We are going to give you answers to something or many things that are potentially on your mind right now. And if you're walking around feeling kind of tired, just out of sorts, short-tempered, frustrated, there might be a reason for that. And it's all about energy. It's all about what's around us. Very profound time right now. We're going to start there and talk a lot more today. She is a galactic shaman, Reiki master. She's also a sound healer and so much more, and has insight on this stuff. And I knew she would. There was not even a doubt. Our professional of the year, Shayna Blackmar, is back with us. Well, hello there. How are you doing today?
Hi, Steve. I'm here. How are you?
Good. And this is not about anything negative. It's more about maybe validating what we're feeling. But as I understand it, astrologically, it's a very heavy time. There's a lot of transits going on. There was a full moon eclipse just the other day, while this other stuff is going on, while there's a Mercury retrograde, stuff that we probably aren't going to see maybe in our lifetime with this kind of alignment. You know, what does that mean? It means for many of us, short-tempered, tired, kind of cranky, at a point where it's like, I'm not dealing with that anymore. That's the best description I have. Anything else to add to that?
Absolutely. So, yeah, we have come out of this really challenging corridor astrologically where there were two eclipses. They always go in pairs. We're in Mercury retrograde. There's also a couple other planets still retrograde too, like Jupiter, and I forget the other ones. And then there was the 3-3 portal just a couple days ago. So it's basically all of these things combined under the surface are creating a new architecture for us, for our physicality, for our life, for the collective. And as things are shifting, things that don't fit in to this new architecture, this new foundation, are going to, don't feel good anymore. And part of the change with anything, right, is there's discomfort. Kind of like when the lobster grows, he's uncomfortable and then he grows and expands his shell, right? That discomfort is a good byproduct, a positive, high vibrational byproduct, is it helps us to grow. And so we were just talking about how I've noticed this pattern over the past couple of years where there are these big, challenging energy corridors. And then afterwards, there's this kind of unconscious need to cocoon and go into the chrysalis, and, social engagements don't sound good. You just need to draw all the energy back in and just be with yourself and let things shift, let things grow, let things, come into this new level that is available.
I had a conversation with somebody and we both arrived at the same kind of feeling based on what you're describing, that almost feel like a caged animal. Like, I got to break out of this, whatever this is, the routine, or not moving forward. And you should. And let's be honest, we know what's holding us back, most of us. We don't want to admit it, but it will be revealed when you go a little bit deeper or work with somebody like yourself. But would that be a fair description of what you could be feeling now too?
I think that's perfect. And that's so like visceral. And that's what the feeling is, right? It's
yeah.
Like, this does not work for me anymore. I've reached my limit. I am done. Like, rawr, right?
And I don't overthink things. I maybe I used to back in the day. I don't now. I don't make rash decisions, but it's like, here's one. And in real time, I I have an older Jeep. It's very old, and I use it for fun. I just, go kayaking. It's my zen. I put a couple hundred miles on it a year. That's it. And I say it's in hospice. It's on its last leg, but I
Oh,
love it and I treat it with love and respect. But you know what? Maybe time for an upgrade. So I'm looking at maybe buying something else, and I'm like, well, I don't want to spend too much, but if I get spend a little bit more, it'll be a better vehicle, and blah blah blah. And I'm at the point I was like, do it. Why am I thinking about it? It's those kinds of things where you're in that mode of thinking, responsibly and all of that. Well, what the heck? Throw a few more grand at it, and just less things to break down, less issues, all of that, and just do it. But that's one example of a life question, where I'm like, I don't know. But now I'm at the point, I'll just text the guy by. Just do
well,
it.
and I think that's a good example of where our energy can be leaking and we don't even realize it to this just kind
Mm.
of constant thoughts in the back of the head. Should I do this? What about this? What about this? Versus just do it, take care of it. You don't have to think about it anymore. Done. All of that energy can come back to you now.
That's it. And bonus, the person selling, I thoroughly trust. Like it is,
Yeah.
top notch. I don't have to worry about it. We're worrying about it. And I love what you said. I'm not going to ever forget it. Energy leak. So I would be leaking energy thinking about, well, there's one a little bit cheaper. Maybe if I should buy it, but I got to get a mechanic to take a look at it. There's a lot of scammers out there, blah, 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 blah. Here it's just like, show up, here's the papers, it's detailed and ready to go. And the level of trust, yeah, I spent more, but I got to believe less breakdowns. He did everything, new tires, new brakes, everything. Again, it's a fun vehicle. It's an additional, just yeah. But I'm leaking energy. I
Yeah,
never
and I
heard
think
that.
that's part of following our peace. Like, what is going to bring you peace, right? So you're not leaking the energy because moving forward, we can't leak our energy anymore.
Energy leak. That's a good one. And we don't realize that we're doing that in those situations where you're thinking about things and, dare I say overthinking. And there are reasons you don't want to, just blow money here on that or make it as a rash decision. But I'm just going to take that job. I'm just going to do it. You got to think it out. But sometimes you're leaking energy and thinking about it too much. Hmm.
Yeah, and if you can come to the another question, have another question of, okay, what's going to bring me the most peace and move forward? Done.
Done.
You don't have to just keep spinning
Yeah, yeah. Should you look at it through
other
the eyes of
people.
that, at this time with those things that are on our mind, those decisions? Should we look at it like what's going to bring me peace?
Absolutely. Peace is a really high frequency. It's like 600 hertz,
Mm,
if and if we follow our peace, life's so much more enjoyable. Not that there
mm,
are challenges, but we don't leak as much energy. Um, we stay in a higher vibration, a higher frequency, and the more we stay in those higher frequencies, because we're magnetic beings, we then attract in higher vibrational experiences. So it's just another way, our thoughts, our words, our actions are creating our reality. So if we're following peace, because that's the intention, I want more peace. I want to feel good and better and calm my energy back.
mm.
Then you're holding that higher frequency, you're maintaining that higher frequency. So then you get higher frequency experiences as well.
I want to ask you a question about higher frequencies, and this just came up the other day. It's so you just open the door to it. Often heard that happiness, joy are way up there in terms of high frequency. And yeah, sometimes I've heard that happy is the highest. Then sometimes you hear that joy is the highest. Then I heard this and I was like, oh, I never thought about that. Um, what about the frequency of authenticity? Somebody said that is the highest.
Really, I think it's very high, and I don't I haven't seen anything with an exact number, whereas I've seen numbers for other emotions. But I wonder what the threshold is, because that's really interesting. Because at a certain point, if you're being your authentic self, you're, I wouldn't say it's the highest actually, now that I'm kind of working through it, because there's a threshold point in frequency where you're your authentic self at all times. You're while feeling different emotions, and those will have different frequencies, right? So you can be authentic and be courageous. You can be authentic and be in joy. You can be authentic and be in peace, you know? So I don't think it in and of itself is the highest frequency, but it absolutely gives you access to it.
Now, if you aren't being authentic, for whatever reason, you haven't arrived at that yet, you haven't figured yourself out, maybe you don't truly love yourself, you're going to feel off because you're going to make decisions that aren't really you. You're going to feel misaligned, and I got to believe you're not going to be feeling as much happiness as you could, as much joy as you could, as much peace as you could when you are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's coming back to what we were talking about at the beginning, how this new architecture and structure that is coming into our lives is forcing us into higher frequencies, forcing us into authenticity at all times. And so if someone is, consciously or unconsciously, um, not being authentic, whether they're manipulating people, or again, that can be just unconscious or being selfish or egotistical or whatever, then that is like a constant leak of energy, constant, because they're constantly trying to maintain this facade. And as we're moving
Yeah.
forward, the architecture won't allow for energy leaks. So those experiences, people who are in that energy all the time, they're probably really, really struggling because they have to look at their behavior and make changes, or it's only going to be more and more uncomfortable.
Mm, I've always wondered about this. Can we ever arrive at a point where we are 100% authentic or close to 100% authentic? Is it
I
possible?
think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think so. I mean, it takes intention and accountability, and looking at yourself, your behavior, and just constantly, not constantly, but like wanting to do better, wanting to grow and be yourself, right?
I would imagine it would be a moving target where this afternoon you're 100% authentic or 99% in a situation you're dealing with, but then this evening you may be doing an activity with somebody where for a number of reasons you can't really be fully you. Maybe you don't want them to know certain things or whatever it might be. So now you might be like 90% authentic. And it's always going to be an up and down, but I guess the goal is to get as close to 100% as possible. Would you say
Yeah,
that?
and I think we're reaching the thresholds where we want to be authentic all the time.
Yeah.
So things that don't feel where we can be, it doesn't feel good, right? And so we are having to, evaluate, which is the perfect time for Mercury retrograde to evaluate anything and everything and look at, can I be more authentic in this situation? Can I be more authentic with these people? If not, cut your losses and find something else that will then open up where what feels more aligned. Because if you're growing and shifting, things around you may not work anymore, and that's fine. We're supposed to grow, right? We're supposed to change.
Well, you said something before. I never considered it, but these transits, this energy, the mucky, heavy stuff that's going on right now is forcing us to go into a higher vibration. Never thought it that way, but it is, because when you say
whether we
want to or not, yeah, because all right, so you're cranky, you're feeling heavy, and I don't want to go hang out with them. I usually do. I just don't want to do. there's probably a reason you don't want to, because it doesn't align with your higher purpose and who you really are. Maybe you can't be yourself around some people, and you're like, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do that. I tell them I'm busy, whatever it is. And there's the force for you to be in a higher vibration.
Yeah, absolutely. The energy is there to support us.
Mm.
And there's always this ebb and flow, right? The planets go direct and they go retrograde. We feel more social, we feel more antisocial, like because we need the expansion, but then we need the opposite. We need to go inward. So it's just a natural ebb and flow. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with needing more time to yourself or relationship shifting. It's just part of the process.
So, what should we at this juncture, with what's going on right now, which is going to be a while, it's not going to end. We got weeks to go here, and I'm not an astrologer, far from it. But it's not just it's going to end tomorrow. What are some questions we should ask? Some things we should do to harness the power of this and move things forward in a positive way?
Yeah, I love that. And it's such perfect timing. We have 2 more weeks of Mercury retrograde. I
Yep.
saw it goes direct on the equinox. So, and what was coming through this morning when I was, tuning in for our show is being accountable. So we talked last week about watching the movie of our life, and that's great for zooming out, being impersonal, coming up into neutrality, seeing patterns, all of that good stuff. Um, but it is also really important to, again, come up into neutrality and being impersonal and being accountable, looking at your own behavior. How, if someone is a perfect example is if you have an interaction with someone and they're the mirror, right? So if you're seeing them as being, say, selfish, use that to help yourself grow. Okay, are there ways in which I'm selfish, either with this interaction or sometimes? How, if that's, how have I been selfish maybe? And just look with neutrality, without judgment, without criticism, just in terms of how can you grow, right? And if you find that, oh yeah, you know what, I was actually a little selfish in this circumstance, um, and then it becomes, okay, well, how can I do that differently? Why was I selfish? What was I needing that I wasn't getting? Was I needing attention? Was I needing love? Oh, you know what? I can love myself. I can give that to myself. I have everything I need within me. So I think the accountability and looking at, just being neutral and loving and non-judgmental, and looking at our own behaviors as a tool to help us grow seems
When
just huge right now.
when we look at others and we judge and either say things to ourselves about them or to somebody else, is it always the mirror?
I don't know if it's always, but it's definitely useful.
Because it's coming up for a reason.
We
Why are
can,
you
again, like the energies of the planets, we can use it to help us.
right? Oh, well, all right. So maybe in those moments where you look at somebody and you're like, oh, they always do that, or they just, why do they do that? Like, maybe that's a moment to say some introspect and just look at yourself like, well, I wonder if I do that. Maybe I don't realize it, but maybe I do.
Exactly, exactly. And true healing we have to be totally honest with ourselves. Otherwise, we're denying or hiding from something that needs to be healed. And so then you're not going to get to the root cause. You're not, whatever that pattern is, won't be able to be truly healed. So it's important.
When you work with people, can you identify things energetically within them that they may not have realized?
Yeah, it seems one of the things that I help people do is bring awareness to their patterns so that, if that's what they want to do, if they want to keep growing and healing, so that they can make the shift that they're ready to make, that they need to make.
When they're with you, virtually or even in person, do you detect energy and use that? Your energy detector goes off, and then you can maybe help pinpoint certain things or point things out.
Yeah, it's always a feeling, and then I ask questions based on what we've talked about at the beginning of the session on what they want to focus on and what's coming up for them. And yeah, just basically ask questions and more information comes in for to help them, to answer their questions and help them move forward. Yeah.
I I'm amazed at this transit, and there's been other ones, and I've felt certain things here and there, but everybody is saying the same thing. Like I talked to a friend the other day, and granted it was a little bit of a rainy day. I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm in bed right now. It's in the middle of the day, and they were able to. It's like they're curled up watching TV, and they had a meeting earlier in the day that was kind of impactful, but it turned out fantastic. And then they were just like, "No, I'm just I'm hunkering down." But they don't know. They're not plugged into any energy or anything like that. But you think it's instinct that whether you're aware of these things around us energetically or not, the instinct kicks in, and you put the block up, you put the boundaries up, chrysalis, all of that.
I don't know if it's instinct, maybe. I mean, it's definitely unconscious. And if we're following what we're feeling, then it's good. And actually, I mean, I know society says work, 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 go, go, go. Don't take naps unless you're sick or,
Yep.
past 5 years old. Um, but sleep is actually the fastest way to help us integrate when these big influxes come in, when we get these big upgrades. So if you're feeling tired, go for it. Take a nap. Spend the
Mm.
whole day in bed once a month. Whatever it is, it will help you integrate faster. You'll feel better. You can then bounce back faster. So, let the guilt go and just take a nap.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The guilt kicks in. It's like, I didn't do anything all day. I'm like, all right, well, you did do something. You
You
did nothing.
did.
Right. You're healing. And
Yeah.
that's what sleep is about. Our bodies regenerate and our mind as well. You can't function. You can't function without sleep. There's one tip. Anything else floating out there that you would want people to know at this time with everything going on to feel better, move their life forward? Anything like that?
I love sleep. That is coming through so much right now. And I was actually posting about this a couple of weeks ago that um, you mentioned just a minute ago about how the sleep, sometimes we feel guilty about it, right? That we're not doing stuff, but we are working. We're actually sometimes doing more in that astral realm when we sleep than we are when we're awake. So you're still getting things done if that makes you feel better. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah, sleep is just as important as being awake right now.
Interesting. Thank you for saying that. And I'm thinking also too, um, ask ask for questions, ask for information, ask for a sign. Like if you're just about to
Yeah,
fall
always.
asleep or you're going to take a nap, throw it out there. And you just brought back a memory. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. I was feeling the heaviness, and I had a rare opening, like an hour. And I'm not even kidding you. I put my feet up right here, leaned back in the chair, and I didn't really go to sleep. Maybe I zoned out for a second. I just meditated and just took a moment. Sometimes you need a minute. Thank you for today and all this insight. I'm happy to report to all of us we're not in it alone. You validate all of this as well, and just a piece of what you do in helping people move their lives forward with all the modalities you offer. What's the best way to find you?
Through my website, it's vurusha.com, Vurusha. And on social media, I'm on Instagram at Shayna Blackmar Healing.
Yeah, I know this gets a little woo and a little deep, but maybe this is an answer for a lot of us why we're feeling a certain way now. And maybe this is your introduction. The door just swung open to this thing called energy. Maybe you got a little insight today on how it all works. Thank you very much for being here today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.